It happened at breakfast. Just eggs, coffee, and betrayal. I'd pulled an all-nighter resolving a customs issue in Qingdao. A misprinted shipping code nearly delayed $80,000 worth of merchandise. I'd coordinated across time zones, used every bit of my Mandarin, and saved the deal by 4:30 a.m. I was still running on adrenaline when I walked into the kitchen. My mom looked up from her phone. My dad folded his newspaper with an over-rehearsed kind of seriousness. "We've decided Ryan is going to take over as CEO," he said, like he was announcing the weather. I stared at them, waiting for a punchline that never came. "Wait, what?" I asked. "CEO of what?" "Our company," Mom said like it was obvious. "He's 20. It's time." I turned to Ryan. He was drinking from a novelty mug that said, "I paused my game to be here," looking pleased with himself. "I think I've got the vibe," he said with a shrug. "Vision. Branding. That kind of stuff." He had no idea what the company even did on a granular level. Once he thought FOB on a shipping dock meant free of baggage. Another time, he asked if a tax form was a riddle. "Don't worry," Dad said, misreading my horror as doubt. "You'll still help. Just from the background. You've been stressed. This'll be good for you too." Oh. So I'd still do the actual work. He'd just get the credit. Classic. I reminded them I was the only one who spoke Mandarin, the only one who'd ever built actual relationships with our overseas partners. That I'd grown the business, modernized our logistics, created entire systems for tracking operations. "But he needs this experience," Mom said. "You're already successful. Let him catch up." Let him catch up? He's never even broken a sweat. That week, Ryan moved into the glass-walled corner office on the top floor and posted a slow-panning video on Instagram with the caption, "Office with a view. CEO era. Let's cook." He liked the view. That was his favorite part. The height, the aesthetic, the way the light hit his hair during selfies. Meanwhile, I spent the week fielding confused calls from partners who couldn't reach the new CEO because he was apparently meditating through his voicemail. He didn't answer supplier emails. He didn't show up to the weekly call with our Shanghai distributor. He ordered a neon sign for his office that said, "Boss moves only." By Friday, I was exhausted and quietly furious. I'd become a ghost in my own company, still working, still fixing, but erased. I tried one more time to talk to my parents. "This isn't just some toy you can give him," I said. "This is a real company with real people and real risk. He'll figure it out," Dad said. "He has to. That's how you learned, right?" "No. That's how I survived." Ryan had never had to learn anything. And now, I was supposed to sit back while he steered the ship directly into an iceberg. The following weeks were a masterclass in chaos wrapped in a smiley Instagram filter. Ryan had his name printed on the glass door of his new office in bold gold font. Chief Executive Officer, followed by his name in a stylized cursive that looked like it belonged on a wedding invite. His first move? Bringing in an interior designer to make his office more modern minimalist. Apparently, what the supply chain really needed was a $3,000 beanbag and abstract art that looked like someone sneezed in watercolor. Meanwhile, the real work, the paperwork, supplier updates, tax filings, language support, was still falling on me. I was still in the basement-level operations office with no windows and a squeaky chair. Ryan, meanwhile, sent me Slack messages that said things like, "Can you please draft a summary of whatever's happening with our China stuff? I need it for a lunch pitch." Our Chinese partners were starting to notice the shift. Several of them began messaging me directly again, first out of confusion, then concern. One even sent a politely worded email that translated to, "Your new leadership has the energy of an untrained duck. We worry the pond is not safe." I didn't disagree. Ryan held weekly strategy meetings where he said things like, "We're pivoting to synergy," and "Let's lean into the hustle." When I asked him what that meant, he blinked, looked at his phone, and said, "It's about vibes." He liked vibes. They required no follow-through. He also liked meetings with no agenda, branded water bottles, and a view from his window. He once told me, unironically, that he made his best decisions when vibing over the skyline. What he didn't like: emails, phone calls, numbers, actual decisions. When the warehouse had a backlog and one of our top-tier clients in Beijing threatened to pull their order, Ryan forwarded the email to me with the subject line: "Can you handle this? I'm swamped RN. Mental health day." Mental health day apparently meant brunch and shopping for more office plants. I went to our parents calmly, hoping for one last rational conversation. "I'm not asking you to demote him," I said. "But he's drowning. And he's pulling the company with him." They looked offended. "He's trying," Mom said. "You're being too critical. You were harsh on him as a kid," Dad added. "He needs encouragement, not judgment." Harsh? I used to do his homework when he faked being sick. I used to drive him to soccer while juggling supplier calls on speakerphone. Encouragement? This wasn't summer camp. This was a multi-million-dollar company with staff, contracts, obligations, legal liabilities. But logic didn't live in our house. Ego did. So I stopped trying to convince them. I started documenting everything instead: every misstep, every ignored email, every time I had to step in quietly to stop a disaster. Because the cracks were spreading. The partners were growing wary. One even scheduled a surprise visit to understand new leadership direction. Ryan thought it was because they wanted to congratulate him. He wore a white blazer and served matcha. They asked him, in Mandarin, about delayed shipments and unpaid invoices. He blinked, smiled, and said, "I don't speak sushi." It was one of those moments where time slows down. I felt physically ill. And that's when I knew something bigger had to happen. Not just to save the business, but to finally wake them all up. Ryan's moment of glory came on a Thursday morning. By glory, I mean the day our partners flew in from Shanghai and dropped a reality check into his oat milk latte. It was supposed to be a courtesy visit. They told me their real goal was to meet the new leadership, in person, and observe. I knew exactly what that meant. They were nervous. This wasn't about greetings. It was about assessing whether their investment was still safe. I tried to prepare Ryan. I gave him translated summaries of our current deals, financial trends, inventory issues, even basic greetings in Mandarin. He skimmed none of it. Instead, he bought new socks. Patterned ones. "To show character," he said. The partners arrived sharp and silent, dressed professionally, and dead serious. Ryan met them wearing a linen shirt and sneakers, holding a coffee that read, "CO Fuel." They greeted him in Mandarin. He blinked, smiled, and nodded at random. Then he said, "Right back at ya." It was painful. They asked direct questions. Where were our Q3 projections? Why were payments behind? Why hadn't the new logistics proposal been approved? Ryan stared blankly. "Yeah. I'm more of a big-picture guy." By the end of the meeting, the lead partner, Mr. Zhou, a man I'd worked with for 6 years, turned to me with a look that said everything. After they left, Ryan finally called me. "Bro. What was that?" he asked, frantic. "They talked to me like I was a spreadsheet." I said nothing. "You could have warned me," he added. I had. He didn't listen. For the next 3 days, everything slowed. Calls weren't returned. Orders were paused. The partners had begun backing away without even needing to say it. Dad walked into my office on Saturday. "Did you tell them to freeze the contract?" "No," I said. "They're worried." "I'd be too." He narrowed his eyes. "You're sabotaging your brother." That made me laugh. Not out of humor, more like disbelief. I'd spent years being the net under Ryan's trampoline, and now, the moment I stepped back and let him fall on his own, I was the villain? I didn't defend myself. I went back to my computer. That night, Mr. Zhou called me. Not a message, an actual call. "I want to help," he said. "But not like this. He's not the leader." I exhaled. Finally, someone said it. "I have an idea," he continued. "Let us show him. Clearly. Directly." It was risky. But I was done playing savior. We planned the follow-up visit together, one that would make the consequences impossible to ignore. Monday morning, The Shanghai team showed up again, this time unannounced. Ryan was mid-donut, watching a YouTube video about delegating for dominance. When he saw them, he panicked. Tried to swallow too fast and choked, coughing crumbs into his coffee. They didn't wait for greetings. They pulled out a presentation, in Mandarin, and launched into a slideshow filled with red numbers, late fees, cancelled deals. Each slide ended with a single phrase. Unacceptable under current management. Ryan kept turning to me with silent, panicked looks. I didn't say a word. He had the title. The corner office. The power. Let him use it. The meeting lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, they stood, bowed slightly to me, and walked out. Ryan followed them into the hallway, but they didn't look back. Later that day, Dad stormed into my office. Why didn't you help him? He barked. Because I wasn't allowed to, I said simply. That's what you wanted. Him in charge. Me in the background. He didn't respond. Just stood there, red-faced and stunned, like someone who'd finally realized they'd handed the keys to someone who couldn't drive. By Friday, the company didn't just feel unstable, it felt hollowed out. Orders were delayed. Vendors went dark. 3 major partners sent official statements, each with a variation of the same chilling phrase. We are reevaluating our relationship due to ongoing instability in leadership and logistics. Translation? We don't trust you anymore. Inside the office, morale was quietly collapsing. The once busy sales floor now echoed more than it buzzed. Meetings were postponed. The usual small talk in the break room had turned into hushed speculation about layoffs. Ryan, meanwhile, seemed unfazed. On Thursday, he hosted what he called a culture refresh session. It consisted of him standing at the front of the room holding a latte and a whiteboard marker, declaring that the key to success was radical optimism. Let's stop focusing on problems, he said, spinning around to write. Vibe stress. In large, wobbly letters. We're here to flow, not to force. When Amanda asked how we were addressing the halted shipments, he waved his hand. We're manifesting solutions. No one spoke. Afterwards, he approached me and said, Wasn't that amazing energy? I didn't answer. That night, I stayed late, clearing a backlog of urgent supplier inquiries. One of our core freight partners had refused a delivery until payment was confirmed. Ryan had no idea. He thought logistics was just a tab in the accounting software. Around 9 p.m., I got a call from Amanda. Her voice was tight. Did you hear? She said. Jonah quit. Jonah was our inventory manager, the guy who'd been with the company longer than Ryan had been legally allowed to drive. Said he doesn't want to be part of whatever this is turning into. She added. I looked around my dim office, lit only by my screen. On my desk sat Ryan's last Slack message. Can you tell me what I'm supposed to do when PPL keep quitting? Like, what's the playbook? There was no playbook. You either did the work, or you didn't. The next morning, Dad showed up unannounced. He walked past reception without a word and into my office, shutting the door like a judge about to deliver a sentence. You need to clean this up, he said. I raised an eyebrow. This is your fault, he continued. The partners are panicking. People are quitting. You've let this get out of control. Let this? I echoed. Dad, I've been holding this company together for 5 years. I warned you what would happen. He didn't flinch. You're bitter. That's what this is. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. I'm not bitter, I said. I'm tired. He stepped closer. So you're going to stand there and let it fall apart? I didn't let anything happen. You did. He stared at me, as if trying to recognize a version of me he hadn't seen before. One that didn't ask for permission. One that no longer played the role of backup quarterback in a family that only ever cheered for one player. That afternoon, Ryan sent out a company-wide email that simply read, We're pausing some operations temporarily to recalibrate. Stay inspired. Glowing star. Within 2 hours, 2 more employees resigned. Amanda poked her head into my office. Should we start printing resumes? She asked. I shrugged. Maybe. The break room was dead silent. Even the espresso machine, the one Ryan insisted on leasing because good caffeine fuels vision, sat untouched. The office no longer felt like a business. It felt like the waiting room for something worse. And for once, I wasn't scrambling to fix it. I was watching, quiet, steady, resolved. Because this time, they needed to feel what I'd carried all along. If Ryan had one talent, it was convincing himself everything was fine, long after it clearly wasn't. After his vague, stay-inspired email, the office was quieter than ever. Amanda told me people had started calling it the ghost floor. One by one, desks were being cleared. Chairs sat empty. But Ryan acted like nothing had changed. He posted an Instagram story of himself spinning in his office chair, captioned, "Sometimes silence means the vision is settling into place." Meanwhile, the finance department was panicking. With contracts on hold and payments delayed, we were dangerously close to missing payroll. Jonah's replacement lasted 2 days before quitting. IT had stopped responding to support tickets. Even the water cooler guy had sent a final notice for unpaid invoices. But Ryan kept pushing his mindset pivot idea. He started using a whiteboard to write things like, "Chaos equals opportunity. Inspiration isn't linear. Coffee is for closers and vibe leaders." It would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. I began getting emails from staff, quiet, cautious messages like, "Hey, I know you're technically not in leadership anymore, but what's going on? Is there a plan B? Can we talk? Off the record?" At first, I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to fall back into the role they always expected me to fill, the fixer, the translator, the ghost leader. But the longer I waited, the more it became clear they weren't asking me to save Ryan. They were looking for something real. One afternoon, Amanda stopped by my desk and closed the door behind her. She didn't even sit, just stood there with that look she always had when she was choosing her words like stepping stones. "They're going to walk," she said quietly. "The partners. Joe asked for a meeting with me directly. He's bypassing Ryan now." I nodded. "I figured. They want you in the room." Of course they did. I met Mr. Joe at a neutral cafe downtown. He insisted we keep it informal. No suits. No titles. Just clarity. He didn't waste time. "You've been quiet," he said. Deliberately. I nodded. "I've said all I can say." He stirred his tea. "We are not abandoning the business. But we will not stay for incompetence." Then he leaned in. "Your silence is the only competent thing happening in that building." He slid a folder across the table, partnership terms they'd revised. "A suggestion: cut their losses, restructure operations, and name a new acting leader." They didn't say, "Ryan must go." But they didn't need to. "Are you asking me to take over?" I asked, my voice steady but heavy. "We're asking you to let us support you," he said. "You've supported us for years. Now let us return the favor." I left the meeting not with adrenaline, but with something quieter. Like relief. Back at the office, Ryan was in his chair again, holding a pen like it was a microphone, doing a dramatic reading of what he called Monday Manifesto. Amanda mouthed help as I passed her. In my inbox, I saw another resignation letter. This one was different. It was from someone who had been loyal to the family for decades. Attached to it was a single sentence. "You can't build on sand, and I'm tired of drowning." That night, I drafted my own letter, not of resignation, but of proposal. A new structure. A redefined leadership path. Real delegation. Real metrics. Not just vibes. I didn't send it yet. I waited. Because the next move wasn't mine alone. It was going to be everyone's. By Tuesday morning, it was no longer a question of if, it was a matter of how long. The building felt different. Not louder, not more tense, just vacant. Like the people left were holding their breath, waiting for something that hadn't been said but was coming all the same. Ryan, still unshaken, arrived in aviator sunglasses and a turtleneck. "Minimalist leadership," he called it. Amanda watched him walk past her desk and whispered, "Is it possible to lead from inside a hallucination?" At 10 a.m., an email landed in everyone's inbox. It was from the executive partners in China, marked urgent. It announced a live video meeting to discuss structural revisions and long-term operational sustainability. Translation: this wasn't a brainstorming session. This was a line in the sand. Ryan forwarded it to me with a comment. Do you know what they're talking about? Grinning face with sweat. I didn't reply. Instead, I met Amanda in the break room. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You ready? She asked. I think so. Good. Because it's happening. When the Zoom call began, it was formal but short. Mr. Zhou, as always, led with clarity. We have valued our relationship with this company. But we must now align expectations with capability. The leadership structure must evolve. Ryan, who had clearly just woken from a nap, blinked rapidly. Wait, are you? What do you mean evolve? Mr. Zhou remained composed. We have submitted a revised partnership contract to the board, pending approval. We recommend a new executive committee, comprised of individuals with demonstrated operational fluency. Ryan laughed nervously. So like a team thing? We're co-creating leadership now? No, Mr. Zhou said plainly. We are recommending a different CEO. Silence. It hit the room like a dropped glass. Ryan turned toward me, eyes wide. This is a joke, right? Tell them this is. You're not behind this, are you? I didn't answer. Because everyone else already had. Amanda's phone buzzed with texts from staff. Finally. It's happening. About time. The board met that same afternoon. No one shouted. No chairs were thrown. It was a quiet alignment of people who had spent too long pretending not to see. The vote passed. Effective immediately, Ryan would step down. I would serve as interim CEO while a permanent path forward was structured. Ryan didn't cry. He didn't scream. He simply stood up and said, Wow. I guess I was too visionary for this place. Then he left. By Thursday, we were already reversing damage. Amanda reconnected with 2 vendors. Anna scheduled a call with logistics. I stayed late revising the pipeline plan we built years ago, this time without needing approval from someone who thought supply chain meant delivering smoothies to the break room. That night, I sat alone in the office. The lights hummed overhead. The building, for once, didn't feel like it was holding its breath. I opened my inbox. Dozens of messages. Some from staff. Thank you. You kept this place standing longer than anyone knew. One was from Mr. Zhou. It read, You led long before they noticed. We're proud to make it official. I didn't cry. But I did sit still, hands on the desk, letting that sentence wash over me. Because for the first time, no one was asking me to fix something broken. They were asking me to lead something worth saving. If Ryan was embarrassed by the vote, he didn't show it, at least not in front of anyone. He left the office that day with his sunglasses still on and a coffee cup he didn't finish, muttering something about needing to clear his energy field. But by the weekend, the PR machine kicked in. First came the social media post, an oddly filtered photo of him looking out over the city skyline, captioned, Sometimes stepping back is how you leap forward. Big shifts coming. Stay tuned. Sparkles. Then came the whispers. Amanda forwarded me a group chat screenshot she'd been sent from a former employee. Ryan had told people he graciously stepped aside so he could focus on a broader vision. He even hinted that he was consulting on a startup. Read, trying to trademark a podcast. But Spin has an expiration date. By the next board meeting, it was clear who was doing the work. Amanda presented real numbers. Shipping recovered, staff retention stabilized, client outreach back on schedule. And me? I just did what I'd always done, answer questions, fix problems, and delegate with actual plans. Meanwhile, the family group chat was on fire. My dad texted me separately. We need to talk. You've made things very difficult. No hello. No congratulations. Just blame, wrapped in passive punctuation. My mom tried a different angle. Ryan feels so lost. Can't you just include him somehow? Include him? He'd been given everything, including the role I'd earned, and didn't want to do the work. Now that it was gone, suddenly he was the victim? I didn't reply. I'd spent years translating chaos into results. Now, I wasn't going to decode guilt disguised as concern. A few days later, Ryan showed up at the office. Unannounced. He walked in like nothing had changed, like he still had a key, because he did. He nodded at Amanda like she was still his assistant. She didn't even lift her eyes from her monitor. He knocked once on my door and came in before I answered. "I just need a few minutes," he said, flopping into the guest chair like it was a therapy couch. I waited. I don't know what happened, man. One minute I'm in charge, the next you're running everything. You think that's easy for me? I stayed quiet. He leaned forward. "Look, I get it. You're good at this. You always have been. But I thought this was supposed to be our thing. Family. That word again. Family. A word they used like duct tape, slapping it over leaks they refused to fix. You didn't want the job," I said finally. "You wanted the status." He blinked. "I did everything I could to prepare you. You ignored it. Then you ignored everyone else. Now you want me to pretend that didn't happen?" His mouth opened, then closed. He looked, genuinely, at a loss for words. "Ryan," I said, calmer than I felt. "You don't need to run a company. You need to figure out who you are without one." For once, he didn't argue. He stood up, said nothing, and walked out. Amanda slipped in 5 minutes later with 2 coffees. "He said anything useful?" she asked. "Not really." She raised her cup. "To useful silence, then." We toasted without a word. That night, I got an email from one of the partners. Not business, just personal. "You were never waiting to lead. You were always leading. They just finally saw it." I stared at that line longer than I expected. Because they were right. I didn't step in when Ryan failed. I stepped forward when I finally stopped apologizing for being good at what I do. 1 month after the vote, the company was humming, not loudly, not perfectly, but with a rhythm that felt real. Amanda now ran weekly operations meetings. Staff turnover slowed to a drip. Our Chinese partners extended a new 3-year commitment. We even hosted a client dinner that didn't end with someone fake smiling through a panic attack. On the surface, everything had stabilized. But beneath that calm was something new, a boundary. And it wasn't just corporate. It was personal. My parents still hadn't called. They'd sent an email once, a cold, vague attempt at mending things, which read more like a cease and desist letter than anything heartfelt. It included phrases like, "Let's not let business come between family. We all make mistakes in judgment. Ryan needs time to find himself." They signed it. "With love." But the kind of love that comes with a receipt and a return policy. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I built something better, a wall made of peace, boundaries, and the unapologetic belief that I wasn't broken for expecting respect. Ryan went quiet online. The podcast never launched. The startup never started. Amanda said she heard from a mutual contact that he was taking time to reset, which in Ryan's speak likely meant spa retreats and vague journaling. But I wasn't following anymore. I was leading. One Friday, as we wrapped up a staff town hall, Amanda caught me before I left the conference room. "You ever gonna give yourself credit?" she asked, arms crossed. "For what?" "For pulling the plane out of a nosedive." I smiled. "I just read the altitude meter." She rolled her eyes. "Modesty is cute. But sometimes, people need to hear the truth." I paused, thinking about that. All those years I'd spent doing the work behind the scenes, while others wore the titles. All the times I translated chaos into results, smoothed over blow-ups, kept things afloat while being told I wasn't leadership material. Maybe I had needed that silence back then to survive. But now I could speak clearly. So that weekend, I did something simple. Something small, but for me. I wrote a letter. Not to Ryan. Not to my parents. To myself. It wasn't long. Just one sentence. "You don't need to be understood to be at peace." I folded it. Taped it inside my desk drawer. That Monday, I walked into the office early. The city was still stretching awake. Light spilled in through the windows. The quiet didn't feel heavy, it felt earned. On my desk, Amanda had left a sticky note. "You're up next." Don't trip. It was about the press interview we had scheduled. A story on the company's turnaround. I used to hate the spotlight. Now, I didn't chase it. But I didn't hide either. As I walked into the interview room, I looked back once, at the hallway that used to feel like a corridor of expectations I could never meet. It didn't feel that way anymore. It felt like mine. And maybe that was the mic drop. Not the moment I took control, but the moment I stopped needing permission to lead.